Okay, Laura. So you're based in Dubai. We see a lot of racing from Dubai, the UK. It's well covered. What? How does racing in Dubai? What would be the basic differences to that in the UK, if any?
No gambling on course is the main one. Gambling is illegal in the UAE, as we know. So you don't have any bookmakers, and obviously it has an impact on the crowd to some extent. Although I would say that particularly our smaller tracks are so well attended. People love going racing. It's free to go racing here in the public enclosures, which is amazing. And so we get really good crowds, particularly at Jebel Ali, which people might be familiar with being on a sort of Friday morning UK time, starts around 10 o'clock. And also Al Ain, which you wouldn't have seen on TV in the UK, because it's primarily Arabian racing, but they get really good crowds, and Maidan as well. But I'd say, because it's such a vast area, and the crowd gets a little bit lost there compared with Jebel Ali and Al Ain, where the crowd are right on the track and so passionate. But yeah, definitely the main difference is no gambling on course. Though you can of course bet on two of our tracks in the UK and elsewhere.
Okay, but it seemed to a lot of people in the UK strange that racing would be so popular, but you can't bet on it. Obviously, it's a cultural thing. Can you explain? Can you explain how people still get so excited by it when there's no sort of outcome for them?
So the horse is a really important part of the culture here in terms of the Emirati culture, the local people. If you sort of look at any history of Dubai, really, horses and falcons will be very much part of that. Obviously, we know that the thoroughbreds derived from Arabians. They're native to the region. That's why we race so many Arabians over here. And endurance racing as well is a huge part of it, and that the rulers all take part in that themselves. And they're very loyal here to the ruling family as well. So if they're doing it, everyone else kind of wants to get involved as well. And I think for the expatriate population, most people would have accounts elsewhere in the world. You're not breaking any rules there because you're offshore, if you like. And one massive change, which I have to give the authorities credit for, it's been the best thing to happen to Dubai racing in my time here, is that about 5 years ago now, they introduced a sale of primarily ex-Godolphin horses, which means that people can come in and buy, there's no reserve, come in and buy a beautifully bred horse pretty cheaply. And that has brought in loads and loads of expat owners, syndicates, new nationalities into racing here. And it's been a huge change. It's meant that instead of relying on the ruling family, the royal families, to put all the horses on the track, so you've got the same silks going round and round, you've now got so many different colours, so many different people going racing. It's opened it up to a whole new audience, and it's really, really changed things, and definitely for the better.
So how popular would it be with the locals? I know you said it's popular, but how popular? I mean, what sort of crowds would you get there of a
Well, it's a difficult question because the locals, as in the Emiratis, are only 10% of the population. So there's
right?
not actually very many of them, and they would probably only really go racing on the big days. There are quite a few young Emiratis now coming into the sport, which is brilliant, through the sort of Massar Godolphin scheme and things like that, and that they're starting to own horses, which is absolutely great. But beyond that, the bulk of the crowds at the tracks is made up by Sudanese expatriates who live and work here, and also probably Pakistani expatriates would be the broad sort of nationalities that come racing and break up the crowd, make up the crowd. And these guys are so passionate about it; they absolutely love it. They may have some sort of little ring going on, perhaps, who knows, amongst themselves. They can play the Pick Six competition, which is free, and you can win a lot of money on that. I don't think I've ever got more than about two right. I'm terrible at that, but that's really popular, and that's free to enter, and you can win 10,000, 20,000 pounds perhaps if you get them all right. So that brings people to the racetrack, and it's just a real nice family atmosphere. People take picnics, they can take their children. It's great. So we're really lucky that we have that, and we have that sort of really passionate core of race fans, and you could go to Jebel Ali on a Friday, you could drive an hour and a half to Al Ain the next day, and the same people will be there. They travel all around the weekend because they love their racing.
So is there like a trade paper? Is there form, that sort of thing? Do people delve into it like that?
Yeah, for sure. So we have our racing post, if you like. It's called Aladia. It's in English and Arabic, and that has all the form, comments, same thing as you'd be used to in news stories. And also the Emirates Racing Authority website is really good. It has a database of all the horses in training here. and it's very, very good with their past performances. And unlike in the US, but of course, like we're used to in the UK, that's all free. So we're really lucky with things like form guides. They're very good.
Okay, now you've become involved with ownership in syndicates, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I love it. It's the best thing. It's great fun.
So how do the fees, training fees, stroke prize money ratio compare? Or is it feasible to do it and hopefully it will wipe its face, or is it still a something for rich people? You know, is
No, not
it a
at all.
pastime?
We're really lucky here. The training fees are pretty low compared with the UK. So you're looking at about £1,000 a month, maybe a bit more. Maybe let's say 1,100, 1,200 a month. And that's everything because things are subsidised. So feed and things like that are subsidised. And because all the horses are trained, the majority of the horses are trained kind of at Maidan. So transport costs are low. And the trainers are all salaried by the Emirates Racing Authority or Dubai Racing Club. And so you're not, so training fees don't really differ. You could send your horse to the champion trainer or someone up and coming and you pretty much pay the same amount. So it's very, very reasonable. Prize money is absolutely fantastic. It's out of this world. You can have horses running around in a maiden for 90, no, not necessarily good horses. They might have, or we'd even have sort of 60 rated handicappers running for £20,000 perhaps. It's very, very good. And they put a lot, particularly at Maidan in recent couple of years, they put a lot of money into prize money. I don't think they needed to, it was good anyway, but they've done that recently. Jebel Ali's pretty good. And there's, we've obviously got the World Cup is the other end of the scale with the millions there, but the domestic scene, they've made it really affordable to have horses here now. The only con is that we have probably the shortest racing season in the world, one of them anyway. We start end of October and we wrap up mid-April, which is actually an improvement. We used to wrap up with the World Cup, that at the end of March, but 2019 extended the season, which was greatly appreciated. This year we lost it due to coronavirus, but hopefully next year they'll go back to the extended season. So you do have to pay for your horses in the summer to do nothing. They do lots of swimming and they stand in air-conditioned boxes and they're quite happy, but you're not obviously going to get a return then. But against that, we've got a really, really good fixture list. I think there are opportunities for most horses now, although going to keep everyone happy. And so the prize money is superb. So with our syndicate, we've been lucky so far. And unless they're injured or something, we've managed to make ends meet, which is all you can ask.
So is that season basically down to the climate? It's too hot in the summer. Is that why it's so short?
I mean, it's where are we? Mid-June, and it's 40. I think it's gone up to 45 degrees this week, and like 80% humidity. It's horrible. You couldn't race in this, I don't think.
So, are you ever tempted to have a little flutter? Do you bet?
I'm really bad at betting. I get too emotionally involved in horses, and I'm too impatient, I think, to sort of really have a proper look through. So I bet, luckily for me, or I'd be very poor, I bet in kind of embarrassing little £2 denominations. It's for fun only, and I do enjoy it. But yeah, I wouldn't really describe myself as a gambler. I'd be terrible at it. I'd be broke by now if I did it. Probably I've done okay over the years with like the odd, decent each way bet coming in that I'd be quite proud of. But generally, the bookies do better out of me than I do out of them.
Now, for people that do bet on racing in Dubai, with your local knowledge, is there any sort of jockey trainer combinations or sort of draw bias or anything like that you could sort of give to help people with their to get the edge a bit in racing in Dubai? Is there a trainer and a jockey that might have a good win ratio, that sort of thing?
Well, the last couple of seasons, Satish Seemar's been very much the man to follow. He's been champion trainer again last year. He did brilliantly, but his stable jockey's Richie Mullen, and the yard is so strong that he does often find himself on the wrong one, which is pretty difficult. So I would say you can generally follow Satish quite reliably, but you might not know which jockey's going to sort of wind up on the right one. Richie or Tygo O'Shea, who's a champion jockey. Doug Watson, people probably know, was made a bit of history earlier on this season back in November, trained all 6 winners on a card. He's incredibly potent on Maidan's dirt surface in particular. and he usually has a couple of good 2-year-olds. He does particularly well with 2-year-old fillies. I'm not sure if we're going to have a 2-year-old program this year because obviously people can't really buy them at the moment. And beyond that, with the carnival, Charlie Appleby in turf handicaps, his stats are absolutely ridiculous. And the other thing I'd say is with Godolphin in general, particularly Saib bin Saror, though, if he's bringing something to the carnival that's had 2 or 3 starts and it's been off a year, 2 years, doesn't matter. There's very much a profile of a Godolphin horse that will do well at the carnival. And you can kind of, Saib will get them fit. Don't worry about the break. He will get those bang fit. So you could pretty much support Godolphin blind through the carnival, particularly Charlie Appleby on the turf, I would say. And then there's always the odd juicy international winner, but they can be a little bit harder to spot, unfortunately. But the internationals do better on the dirt to some extent, in that Scandinavia have broken through this year. We had a couple of winners from America as well, which was great. But the turf handicaps, although Jamie Osborne managed it this year and Charlie Fellows has done well in the past, it's pretty hard to beat Godolphin in the turf races. The problem with that is that they often run 3 or 4, and it's finding the right one. But William wouldn't get it wrong a lot for Charlie. I'd say most of the time he gets it right there.
Okay, there's coming to the end, but a lot of people go to Dubai for their holidays. A lot of people go to Dubai for the racing. What's it actually like to live there? And how's your Arabic?
Terrible. I know, I've been here. It's embarrassing. I've been here nearly 15 years. I probably know about 10 words. Just laziness. I have no excuse at all. Just pure laziness. I should have learned. It's great. It's been very good to me, to be honest. I love the weather. I love the racing season. The summers are a little bit hard work just because nothing really happens. It's got a bit better in recent years, and we have this sort of indoor events and stuff normally. But that can be a bit tough. But it's a great place to live. There's in the winter, from October through to April, May, there's always something going on. If you're not racing, you could be at tennis, you could be at polo, you could be some world famous, boxing match or something. There's always something going on. It's absolutely brilliant. So it's a really good place to live. And say if people haven't been out, it's a great place for a long weekend. And I'd say come for a Maidan Thursday and a Jebel Ali Friday, and you won't have 2 more contrasting race meetings, even though they're only sort of 20 minutes apart.
Okay, so how often do you get back to the UK for racing?
I'm really, really lucky with my job. They're very keen. Their main focus away from the UAE is on racing in England. So obviously that's where Godolphin have the most of their runners and the leaders here. So I usually get back probably either for the Guineas or the Derby. I've done Royal Ascot, I think, the last 5 or 6 years, and then usually York in August, and then maybe Champions Day, and then sort of beyond that I'll come back a couple of times on my own as well and try and get racing. So really, really lucky with that. It's brilliant.
Okay, so finally, did you ever see yourself leaving the sunshine and coming back and buying a share and a pointer?
Oh, I'd love to come back. I'd absolutely love to come back. That would be great. I don't know. And the other reason I'm a little bit pathetic with National Hunt now as well. I do sort of watch it like this a bit. But I think, it would be my dad's probably greatest passion. He's got a few shares with Foxtrot Racing, a horse called Vone Romane, who's done really, really well for them. And he actually went to Saratoga last year, the horse. Amazing horse. So my dad's got a few shares in jumpers. I think it would be a real dream to get a pointer with my dad. That would be amazing. I'm not sure we'd ever be able to afford it, but that would be brilliant. But beyond that, if it was just me, I think I'd probably be sticking to the flat syndicates. I think it's too ingrained in me now to stick with the flat. So I've got my eye on a couple of syndicates I think about joining if and when we do move home.
Excellent. Well, it's been really nice talking to you, Laura. I do appreciate you giving us your time, and thank you very much.
No problem. I hope I didn't ramble on too much.
Not at all. Very interesting. Thank you very much.